Michael Richardson, again, it's at the town centre. He's asked, you touched on it before, you'd mentioned about the Aldi. He's asking why is it taking so long for Aldi to build their new store, which you've answered. But he's asking, when will it be open?
Well, I understand that they want to start building it in the next few weeks, and then it's obviously take a few months to do that. Then they've got to fit it out, and I think we're talking perhaps the back end of this year. But don't hold me to that, because I'm not Aldi's and I can't give you an exact date. All I know is that it is going to happen.
Tony Travis from Aycliffe, he's said there's been a lot of rumours about Hitachi and the deal not being signed yet. What's happening with it, and when can we expect construction to start?
I think it's a little bit like the town centre, when people don't think just because they can't see anything happening, they think nothing is happening. With Hitachi, these are massive deals. This is £4.2 billion contract. So they've got to get all the money lined up. They've had to look at planning permissions as well, not Newton Aycliffe, because that's that's something which is different from the other planning permissions they've been looking for, and they've now achieved, which is for depots in Swansea, in Bristol, and in Hammersmith in London, where the trains are going to be maintained, and they need a planning permission for that to go ahead. And as we know about planning permissions, just from the Aldi store and with the health centre, etc., it takes a bit of time, and that's now being sorted. So we expect the contract, which is just a formality in my view, in the next few weeks, maybe May time, and then they can just shoot ahead and start building the factory, which I anticipate they'll probably start building the back end of this year, beginning of next. But the deadline you've got to think about is the deadline of 2015. Because that is when the trains have to start coming off the conveyor belt, so to speak. So it's only 3 years away. So in that space of time, you are going to get the factory built, you're going to get the jobs signed up as well, and then the trains are going to come off the site as well. And in the meantime, hopefully other supplies will come into the town as well to help with the Hitachi development. And I know the in for the Crossrail bid and contract in London, which is a multi-billion-pound contract as well. So, and if they get that, I mean, that's another big contract for Newton Aycliffe. And I think the name is in the title, because it's Hitachi Rail Europe, which means they're not just looking for contracts in Great Britain, they're looking for contracts in the rest of Europe as well, because their train building facility for Europe is going to be here in Newton Aycliffe, and I think that's something that we need to boast about.
Malcolm Scott from Aycliffe Village, he says, when Hitachi gets off the ground, will local firms and suppliers in Aycliffe benefit, or will Hitachi source from outside the region?
I think it'll be a bit of both. One of the reasons why I think they came here was connectivity to the East Coast Main Line. It was also the skills was there, that there was supplies that are here as well. And I would have thought they would use local suppliers. And it's a massive supply chain. They anticipate, thousands of jobs in the supply chain. A lot of them in the region, a lot of them local. But, they may have to get other suppliers from outside of the region as well, which isn't such a bad thing as if it's maintaining jobs in Newton Aycliffe.
Clive Cooper, he's from Aycliffe. He says the town's football club is one of the hubs of the local community and is well supported by local people, but not businesses. Is there anything that you can do to encourage local firms to get more involved with the club?
Well, on the 7th of April, we've got the match between Newton Aycliffe and Gisborough. And my colleague Tom Blenkinsop, who is the MP for Gisborough, is a big football fan. We're both Middlesbrough fans, and we're both going to be here to meet businesses just to try and get them enthused about the football club, because it is the hub. It is well regarded, it's done very well, and I want to see it do even more in the future. And I'll do anything I can to help encourage businesses to come along. So, helping to raise the profile of Newton Aycliffe football team, I'll do as much as I can.
Finally, Steve Woodward, he's from Aycliffe. He said, I read somewhere that you wanted to make people get on a bike so they could get to the Dole office. Is that true?
I think it was the other way around. What happened was, I think most people watching this cast would know that there's a problem with public transport, not just in Newton Aycliffe, but all of County Durham. The government's cut the grants that they give to local councils that they would distribute to the local bus companies. They've also cut the grant that they give in subsidy to bus companies direct for diesel, etc. And they've also fiddled around with bus passes for elderly people as well. And I have elderly people say to me, what's the point of a bus pass when there's no buses to go on? So what's happened is you find that the privatised bus companies have actually just withdrawn the routes, and a lot of the time they do it without consultation, or they change the times without consultation. and this is causing a lot of problems. I've got people who've been to my surgeries and have spoken to me who've can't get to work, or they haven't now to catch 3 buses when before it might have just been 1. I have one person who doesn't live in Newton Aycliffe but lives in Bishop Midland. He's worked at the same company for 34 years in Durham, and they pulled the bus off, so she's having to get friends to get her to work and what have you. But I managed to talk to Arriva and Durham County Council, and we have got an extra 2 buses put on early in the morning so that people from that area can now get into work. And it seems to me ridiculous. I mean, everybody wants to grow the economy and see thriving jobs, but if people can't get to work, how are we going to grow the economy anyway? And I also think that with the problems we've had with people getting to work, we do need, you know, it's a false economy to think that we could make all these cuts. It doesn't have a knock-on effect where if you can't get to work, you can't grow the economy. And what's happening is, I've spoke to Job Centre Plus about it, because if you can't get to work and you decide to pack in your job, what normally happens is that you don't get benefit for 6 months if you've packed your job in. So I've said in these circumstances, when it's not the fault of the person who wants to get to work but can't get there because there's no more buses, what would happen to them? And what they've said to me is that in some cases they're actually looking at buying people bikes so they can get to work. Well, that seems to me a bit of a false economy. You know, you stop all the buses, but you now got to start buying people bicycles to get to work. So it wasn't about giving people bikes to get to the dole office, it was about getting people bikes to get to work.
That was the last question, actually. I would just like to ask you if you've got a spare can of petrol in your boot.
No, my brother's a fireman, and I was talking about this today. Who said that it's just illegal. There's only so much petrol to keep in your house, and you've got to keep it in a particular way and what have you. So I think the advice of the cabinet minister about, you know, fill your jerry cans up, especially when it takes a week before they can go ahead with a strike. They haven't even said that there's going to be a strike, and the trade union itself has agreed to go to arbitration. So I think there's a lot of panic mongering amongst the government at the moment, probably to try and distract people from the budget and all the stuff around donations at the moment.
Do you think, just for the people of Aycliffe, do you think it's too soon to be panicking, sort of rushing to the garages to buy petrol?
Well, I think so. Let's wait and see what happens. I mean, what I would be, if I was the government, I would be saying to the union and the employees, get around that table and start negotiating about this. And I'll put my focus on that rather than panicking people into going down to the local petrol station to fill up with petrol. You know, I think if they didn't want to get people to panic, I think they've gone around it completely the other way and have made people panic. And I think